Welcome to the JRPG Canon, the ongoing project to document the first slice of a JRPG, talk about why it works and what's fun about these games that we like so much. If you'd like a better intro as to the purpose and idea behind the series, check out the first 2 episodes on Final Fantasy and Dragon Quest, where we define a lot of terms that we'll use in the rest of these episodes. I'm Sam Allman, and this week we'll be covering our first commissioned episode. Well, second, technically, because Bernard commissioned the Shin Megami Tensei episode, but this is the first one commissioned by someone who's not a host. This one was commissioned by our luminary, Eliza Tantivy, and this week we'll be taking a look at the opening slice of Yakuza Kiwami, and joining me this week is Bernard.
Hi, it's me again.
Hi, Bernard. So, Bernard, what was your first exposure to the Yakuza series?
So I don't remember when I first heard about it, but I remember thinking it sounded cool. And during the PS3 days, I was subscribed to GameFly for a time. And if you got lucky, you could still get PS2 games from them. Sometimes rare PS2 games you could rent from them. And I rented Yakuza 1 from them. And I played some of it. And my reaction to it after playing through about the slice we're going to play through today is this should have been a Metal Gear Solid level event in video games.
Yeah.
Which it's become a very famous and lucrative series now, but it wasn't like lightning thunder explosion when the first one came out.
Yeah, it definitely has grown into being a big deal, where Sony's big not E3 this year was showing off like, oh, hey, look, next year we got 2 Yakuza games coming out. And that hasn't been the case for 6 mainline games being released of the Yakuza series. It's just the 7th and 8th game where they're that big of a deal. But I knew of Yakuza like through the grapevine, but the little bit that I saw about it, I thought it was a GTA like, and not that it's a action RPG brawler. I thought it was a go around and do GTA things, but this one is themed about Japan, and it's not like GTA at all, actually. No. But that's how I always thought it was. And then it was within the last 2-3 years or so, I saw people talking about it on Twitter and whatnot, and I saw how much more it's closer to an RPG than it is a GTA, and I was very, very interested in playing it. And playing Yakuza Kiwami right now is my very first time engaging with it whatsoever, and tune in to see how I liked it or not going forward from here.
Tune in, by which we mean keep listening to the podcast on your phone.
Yes.
I have also played Yakuza 0, which is an absolute masterpiece and a lot better than Yakuza 1. Yakuza 1 / Yakuza Kiwami is good, but having played Yakuza 0, I'm like, oh, it looks like it took some time for them to really find their footing and make this the best thing ever.
Yeah. Let's listen to some music from Yakuza and then talk about that journey of them finding their footing.
You might think, so this is a game about running around and punching people. That doesn't sound like an RPG. But it has random battles.
It does have random battles. So Yakuza was first released in 2005 on the PlayStation 2 as Ryuga Gotoku. I always trip up the syllables in Gotoku, and I do like Gotuko, Gotoko, something like that. I don't know why it trips me up. Gotaku. But it translates to like a dragon, so I will probably accidentally interchangeably refer to this as both Yakuza the series and Like a Dragon the series, because as of Game 7, they have changed the English name to be Like a Dragon for the series. It's a lot. But the first one was released in 2005 on the PS2, and it was produced by Toshihiro Nagoshi, who's kind of been spearheading the series ever since. And he set out to make a powerful, gritty drama where you can feel the sense of humanity. Nagoshi put a team together to make this powerful, gritty drama, and he picked the obvious choices. He picked the developers behind Super Monkey Ball and Jet Set Radio. He thought that those would be the people to put together to make his studio, and he was right.
You wouldn't think that would be the people to make a gritty crime drama, but maybe that's why this gritty crime drama is also really weird and goofy.
Yeah. The idea was the brawler parts are very arcade, so he wanted the arcade team, which was Super Monkey Ball, and it was a console experience, so he wanted the console team, which was the team that did Jet Set Radio. They had also done Virtua Fighter, which makes a lot more sense, and I forget the other console game that they made beside Jet Set Radio. But
I mean, also Nagoshi was just a really important figure at Sega, worked on a ton of Yu Suzuki joints in major roles, and just did a ton of really cool games.
Mm-hmm. He had said in some interview that he wanted to get everybody outside of their comfort zone so that there wouldn't be a strict hierarchy, like everybody would be on a level playing field where it's like, oh, you're the Super Monkey Ball people, you don't know how to make a crime drama. You're the Jet Set Radio people, you don't know how to make a crime drama. Let's all work together and make the best crime drama that we can. And that apparently worked, because they made a really good one. So the team included the director, Ryuta Ueda, designers Daisuke Sato and Takashi Tanaka, programmers Kazuhisa Hasuoka and Tetsuya Kaku, music by Hidenori Shoji, and the writers Masayoshi Yokoyama, Hiroyuki Sakamoto, and Haze Seishu. Haze Seishu was a famous Japanese novelist who wrote a bunch of Yakuza crime novels, and he was in charge of writing the main plot. When he was brought on, they really didn't have anything but the theme of Yakuza and the name Like a Dragon. Seishu was super busy, and he was at the height of his novelist career taking off at the time, but he was a huge gamer back in the day, but had kind of given up when they moved to 3D. He was like, I don't care about 3D graphics. I care more about story, etc. So when he was offered, hey, we're going to do a story first game, not one chasing all of the best graphics, he was like, oh, this is my sort of shit. So he took the job. The other writers were in charge of the sub stories and didn't contribute to the main plot at all. And they basically had carte blanche to do whatever they wanted with the sub stories. But what's I found was funny is there's a interview with the writers of the sub stories, and they said that they threw out a bunch of ideas because they were too silly and didn't fit the theme of the game.
Which if you've played the game,
it's just hilarious to me, because I have played this game and seen like things from later games, like the guy that wants to be Michael Jackson and things like that. Like there's a lot of silliness all throughout the series, but in this first game they showed some restraint.
And I think it's really interesting how you have this dichotomy between the and this is also the case in Yakuza 0, and I assume the other games. So you have a very serious main plot, and you have goofy as hell sub-stories, but they're united by the lead character. And I feel like the characterization and performance of the lead character manages to bridge the two, and also getting to see him in these weird situations lends a lot of depth to the characterization that you can't really get normally. It's sort of like how the goofy filler episodes of a show help you deepen your connection with a character for when shit goes down.
Mm-hmm. Definitely. So I didn't know this when I was before writing these notes, but Yakuza 1 had English voice acting. Yep. I know that Judgment has English voice acting, and that was a big deal because none of the other games, quote, none of the other games in the Yakuza series have English voice acting, but the first one did. And and so when I was looking up clips of the original to compare, and they started talking in English, it threw me for a loop. But when the game came out, it was a huge hit, and surprising to the localization team, who worked really, really hard and apparently did a fantastic job. All of the reviews say how good the English dub is. However, this is a Japanese story, and it should have been with Japanese with English subtitles from the beginning. And so they never did it again until Judgment. They were like, sorry, we won't do that. We'll just put it in Japanese with English subtitles. Even the Western reviews all were like, I wish I could have played this in Japanese because this is a J drama. And I thought that was wild.
I'm wondering if games had been on Blu-rays back then, if they would have just kept dubbing them and been able to include both dubs on the disc.
Yeah, they wanted to include it on the PS2. They just couldn't fit it, so they just went with the safer option.
Yeah, and also the cheaper option. Don't have to pay a bunch of English voice actors.
Oh, no, I meant the first game. They went with the safer option of putting it into English to try and make it do it. And then the rest of the time, they went cheaper. Yeah,
which I'm assuming it wasn't as big a hit in the West, so they had to, in order to keep bringing them over, had to make it a bit cheaper. And since people wanted to have the option of Japanese dubs anyways, go ahead.
Yeah. So the game was a hit, and that warranted it a sequel, which then warranted 3 more sequels, and then a prequel, and then a remake, and then several spin-offs. And now here we are, like I said, where the Like a Dragon series is a big push from Sony of what's coming out next year, which is...
We've got 2 coming out this year. We've got the next mainline game coming out next year, I think.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, that's right.
It's a big deal now. And like we said, the first 6 Yakuza games are JRPG adjacent. You have random battles with thugs that you punch in a brawler battle system. It's a lot like Die Hard arcade 3D brawler. It reminds me a lot of like the Saturn era 3D brawlers. You have NPCs and quests and experience points. You have boss fights. You have grinding. It very much is a JRPG vibe, so it deserves a spot in the JRPG canon. 7 and 8 are going to just be RPGs, so those definitely deserve to be here. And so these get not grandfathered in, but grandsoned in. If number 7 is definitely a JRPG, then number 1 makes it too, I guess.
If I'm not mistaken, in number 7, the main character, who's a new main character, it's not Kiryu, the main character of the other games, is canonically a Dragon Quest fan and sort of sees the world in Dragon Quest terms, and that's their excuse for this one as a turn-based RPG.
Yeah. This series is at least more of a JRPG than Zelda is, and I consider the 3D Zeldas RPGs, so this one definitely counts.
It's definitely more of an RPG than Zelda.
Yes.
In that it's an RPG.
Yes. Tim Rogers says that the Yakuza games perfectly emulate a Japanese drama show and how they tell their story. So let's start talking about that story and listen to a little bit more music from the Yakuza games. So you load up the game, this one being Yakuza Kiwami. Both of us played the remake, not the original. That the main difference we'll be highlighting in a second, besides the fact that this one is new and pretty. So you load up the game and it has a very, very hype attract mode demo at the beginning. It has a whole bunch of dramatic scenes in it. It really sets the tone for the game. It's going to be a high octane drama thrill ride and gets you ready from the jump. I love this attract mode. All of the game movies that I looked at, like while writing my notes, include the hype mode as like the first cutscene because it's really good. So you hit new game and choose a difficulty level, and then you get a really cool all kanji title screen that then fades the English over on top of it, which really sells like this is a Japanese story. We just get to see it. Like this is an import. This is very, very Japanese, and that's what you're getting from here. And it right away like felt special just from how they decided to localize the title screens, because they could have just like all of the like interstitial titles that pop up, like, oh, go to blah, 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 do blah, blah, blah. Those are all just in English, but this one they did both, where they faded in the Japanese one and then faded the English one on top of it. I really, really liked that. So chapter 1 is October 1st, 1995, Fate of a Kinslayer. The opening cutscene swoops through the district of Kamurocho, which is positively alive. People are walking about their business, talking to each other. It's bustling, and our camera follows through them for a bit and then takes us into an alley where we see some dudes beating the shit out of another dude while people just keep walking by pretending they don't see it. It's a really good metaphor for this game being about the hidden criminal underbelly it owns.
Also, I want to say this and most of the Yakuza games primarily take place in Kamurocho, which is based on the actual Tokyo district, Kabukicho. However, I can never remember which is the name of the real one and which is the name of the fake one.
Yeah.
They sound similar.
They do sound similar. They do that a lot. Like all of the places are fictionalized places, but contain a lot of real world product placement because the games were expensive to make and didn't sell very well. So they didn't sell bad, but they just weren't hits like we had said earlier. So there's a lot of actual product placement. So it's funny to me that everything is fictionalized, brought to you by actual Jack Daniels, etc. The camera cuts into an office where the guy from the box art is standing over some dude's corpse, holding the gun that apparently shot him. He picks up a ring from the ground that has the word Yumi engraved into it, right as the police show up to arrest him. we flash back to the previous day where we see Box Art Man, whose name is Kazuma Kiryu, and his friend Shinji. Both of them are of the Dojima family, which is a subsidiary of the Tojo clan.
There's a lot of this family is a subsidiary of this family, which is connected to this family, and there's a lot of that in these games. You don't need to keep up with it too much.
No. You can
just sort of know who the characters are. You know who you don't have to be an expert on how Yakuza works to play these games. It's not as difficult as it sounds.
Yeah, no. The main thing you know is that the Tojo clan is basically the mob, and everybody else is in different parts of the mob, and that's basically all you need to know.
Yeah.
You just need to know when they have the same family that they work together. So Shinji and Kazuma work together.
Yes.
Shinji has asked Kazuma to come with him to rough up some loan sharks. And right away we get to walk through Kamurocho and explore it. And it really feels alive. Like in a way that other cities don't. Like I've played a whole bunch of open world games set in a big city before, and none of them felt as good as this one does. A lot of the reviews at the time talked about how alive the city feels, and you kind of you feel it when you play it, and I can't really describe it. Like if I tried to describe it, it would just sound like every modern RPG where you walk by and people are talking and going about their business, but it feels good in Kamurocho.
I think part of it is just subtle stuff about how the camera works, since it's not in, like, it has action segments, but they're cordoned off. Like when people come up and fight you, you go into the battle mode. You're not exploring the place, and also during the exploration being a third-person shooter.
Yeah, I think that's it. Like it's almost over Batman's shoulder from the Arkham games, but not as restrictive. But it definitely feels like I am in a place. It's like you're in a cutscene while you're walking around and exploring, kinda. Like it feels that important. It's good. Play it. Walk around for a little bit. You'll get what I'm talking about. Kazuma and Shinji show up to the loan sharks, and the loan sharks try and fight Kazuma because they think that the Dojima clan is going to kill them. So we fight them and we get a taste of the battle system. It's really good, but I'm really bad at it. I'm also pretty bad at articulating action game mechanics, so I'm going to give it a shot, but bear with me. So you have 4 styles of fighting and 3 buttons to do fighting with, and a dodge button. You have a rush attack, a strong attack, and a grab, but in the purple style, that grab is a kick. You can do various combos with the 3 different buttons, and as you earn more and more skill points, you get cooler combos and contextual bonuses. And you also have a heat gauge, which lets you do cool finisher moves, and heat actions, which do big damage and look super cool. The big one that I used a lot is if you press the heat button, I think it's triangle on the PlayStation, while like close to a hard surface, you can grab the dude's head and slam it into the wall. Those sorts of things. Big flashy moves is what your heat gauge does. After the tutorial fight, Shinji says that he'll stay there and make sure the cops don't come, and he tells Kiryu to go off to the bar called Serena to meet up with Nishiki. On the way there, some punk Yakuza shows up to give us some more fighting tutorials. This one covers those heat actions. The first one was just basic combos. After the fight, we meet Goro Majima, who's patriarch.
The Joker?
Yes.
He's the motherfucking Joker, and guess who voices him in the English dub of the original game?
Mark Hamill?
Yes.
That's amazing.
Did you not know that?
I didn't play that version.
I figured you would have found that fun fact that the Joker of Yakuza is played by Mark Hamill.
That's fantastic. I can't even imagine, based off of his Japanese performance, Mark Hamill's voice coming out of him. But
I don't remember what Mark Hamill's performance was like. I haven't looked it up since then. Mm-hmm. But his Japanese performance is very iconic. Mm-hmm. My memory and my understanding is that he was given a much bigger role in Kiwami. I believe he just became a fan favorite and started getting bigger roles and is actually the playable character for half the game in Yakuza 0.
Yeah, he has a... I remember in the speedrun this week, because it's GDQ ended yesterday, and they did a run of this game. They talked about how the original game, there was like 2 or 3 scenes with Majima, and they hit way harder because they were related to something I forget. But so in this game, because of the Majima Everywhere system, which we'll get to in a second, he has to be there the whole time. So they had to rewrite him to basically be in every scene for it to make sense, and him not just show up dramatically at the climax.
Mm.
So yeah, Majima, he's great. So he goes way back with Kiryu. Apparently he's the co-star of the prequel, so he goes pretty far back. He goes to put the punk in his place and like basically kill him, but Kiryu stops him, and we see that Kiryu has a heart of gold, even though he's a criminal.
I love Kiryu.
He tells Majima that if he's going to run his own family, which this is like the second time it's come up that Kiryu is about to basically get promoted, and he's like, if I do it, I'm going to do it my way. I'm going to do it the right way. Majima takes offense to that. He's like, are you saying that I don't do it the right way since I'm in charge of my family? Are you saying that I don't run my family correctly? He tries to rile Kiryu into a fight, but Kiryu just takes the beating, doesn't flinch. So then Majima heel turns, is like, okay, cool. If you're going to do it right, I'm going to help. And one day I'm going to be big enough, and you're going to fight me. Toodaloo, and runs off. And he's great, and I love him.
He's very goofy and very fun. And I wish I could imitate it, but I can't. He has a very iconic way he calls Kiryu-chan, which is great. I love him.
Yeah, his vocal performance is very much Mark Hamill's Joker through the lens of a silly Japanese guy, but like when he was beating the shit out of the guy and like coming at Kiryu, he's very like menacing sounding. And then the moment he was like, all right, we're going to be best friends forever, it was super animated and like high pitched and silly. He's got range. He's good. So we make it to the bar and we meet up with Nishiki. He asks how the Kiryu family is coming along, and Kiryu says it's not a done deal. But Nishiki says Kazuma wants you to Kazuma, not Kazuma.
There's Kazuma and there's Kazuma, and I'm like, why did you do this? This is the first game. You weren't even running out of names for all these characters at this point.
Yeah, it's one of those things that's a huge problem in English, but they don't sound the same to a Japanese ear, and they don't have the same kanji or anything, so it's not a problem. They are very different, but it is one letter different in English, and it makes it very hard to keep track. So from here on, Kiryu is going to be Kiryu, and Kazuma is going to be the boss, Kazuma. So Kazuma wants Kiryu to head the family, and Kazuma is kind of a bigwig in the Tojo clan at large right now. But Kiryu changes the subject, ever humble, and he asks about Nishiki's sister, who is sick and receiving a whole bunch of surgeries. But before Kiryu can ask more about it, Yumi comes in. Yumi, as you remember, is the name engraved on the ring that Kiryu picked up in the opening cutscene. We then flash back from our flashback to a few months ago, where
The storytelling at this beginning part is, part of me was like, can we just, see things in the order they happen?
So we go to a 2x flashback combo, and a few months ago, Yumi is flirting with some dude while Kiryu and Nishiki are drinking at the bar. The waitress, Reina, asks Kiryu what he's getting Yumi for her birthday coming up, and Kiryu's like, shit, I forgot. And the waitress is like, you should give her a ring. And he's like, okay. So we head out to the city to do a side quest, basically to get a ring, and we can freely explore for the first time.
Sort
of.
A lot of it was blocked off.
A lot of it is blocked off, but we can actually walk around and do things. We're not holding R2 to follow Shinji like we were before.
Yeah.
The world is big and is a lot of side streets of a Japanese town with a bunch of bars and shops. So it would be pretty easy to get lost, but you have a mini map, which works really well, and it helps you not get lost at all.
Also, you say it's big. It's really not that big. It's actually pretty small.
Yeah.
For being a, quote, open world, unquote, game, it's a pretty small area, which I like. It's a small, dense area. I think that works.
Yeah. It's not like a Assassin's Creed giant place with a bunch of reused assets. It is a very small, everything is unique area, which is my preferred version of open worlds. So you make it down to the jewelry store and you buy that ring from the opening, the one that we just saw on Yumi's finger in the pre-flashback, the one where she had walked in and started drinking with you a couple of... We saw it on her a second ago.
Trust us.
So I actually really, really like this bit about the ring. It shows us a bunch about the world and our characters all focused around this ring. We know that there's something up with Yumi because of her name on the ring. Then we see her wearing it. Now we see that Kiryu gets it for her, and we work back recursively to figure out what's going on. In a lot of stories, you need to have a Luke Skywalker. You need to have a fish out of water who can ask questions, and we can see the world through their eyes so that we can slowly learn and keep track of stuff. Starting things in media res is really hard to do, but Yakuza manages to do it by introducing us to a bunch of characters and all their relationships by tracking this one little detail of the ring. Like we could have attacked the spoilers. Kiryu gets doesn't get framed. He takes the fall for a crime he didn't commit, and is the inciting incident of the series. But we could have got there in a bunch of different ways. But we follow this one ring, which is a very personal thing for Kiryu and Yumi and etc. And we follow it through all of these things. And by doing that, we meet Nishiki and we meet Reina and we meet Shinji and we meet Kiryu and we learn all of these different things. And it owns. It's you can tell a novelist wrote this because
and not the people who wrote Final Fantasy 13.
Yes.
If you don't listen to all the shows on this podcast, we love Final Fantasy 13 in this house, but it has a very botched in media res opening.
Yes. So on the way back with the ring, we get pickpocketed. So we have a small quest to track down the pickpocket to various places around the city, and we eventually fight him in our last tutorial about switching fighting styles. There's a ridiculous bit where we have to go back and forth a lot with the pawn shop to get the ring back because the pickpocket had already pawned it. On the speedrun this week, they said that the PS4's big selling point was you can put in your disc and immediately start playing while it's still installing. And this opening chapter was the part that installed first to let you start playing it. So it was padded out to give you more downloading time before you got to chapter 2 and the game actually opened up, which I thought was funny.
That's why it's so obnoxious.
It's very obnoxious. So after After you finally get the ring back, Kiryu gives it to Yumi at her birthday party, and Yumi's like, "Oh my God, this is a perfect gift. Thank you, thank you, thank you." And then we see Reina have a 3 times flashback combo where when she was flirting with that guy, he offered to buy her a ring, and Yumi was like, no, I would only accept a ring from someone that I'm in love with. And Kiryu has no idea that she's in love with him. And that's good. That's good storytelling. So back to the present, but not the full present, but the one that's the day before the present, which is 10 years before the game starts. Kiryu wakes up after having fallen asleep at the bar, and Nishiki and Yumi have already gone home. So Kiryu he leaves to go visit Kazuma. Kiryu delivers the money from the loan sharks to Kazuma, who congratulates him on being promoted to head of his own family. But right then, Kiryu gets a phone call from Shinji. Apparently, the boss of Dojima has captured Yumi, took her away by force. Kazuma tells Kiryu that the boss gets what he wants, and too much is riding on this. He should tough it out. And Kiryu says, "Fuck that. Yumi's my family," and he storms off. So you get to Dojima's office, and you see Nishiki standing over Dojima's body, having shot him. Dojima is the corpse from the opening, and we now see that Kiryu didn't do it. Nishiki says that Dojima forced himself on Yumi, and Nishiki lost it and shot him. Kiryu tells Nishiki to take Yumi and get out of there so that Nishiki can still take care of his sister, and Kiryu then takes the fall for Nishiki. We see the scene from the opening play again, where the cops show up and arrest Kiryu. You see a bunch of scenes about the various political fallout with the families. You see how Kiryu's friends are dealing with his arrest. And we get into Chapter 2, December 5th, 2005, 10 years gone. This chapter shows us how much the world state has changed in 10 years.
There are cell phones now.
Yeah. It sets up a bunch of important changes, like Nishiki being the head of his own family, and the various families in the Tojo clan are all working together, however, tenuously after the fallout of 10 years ago. In jail, Kiryu gets a letter telling him to come meet up with Kazuma. And on the way there, we get our first Majima Anywhere fight. This is something that they added to Yakuza Kiwami, where your dragon fighting style isn't gained back via EXP like your other 3 fighting styles are, but rather by fighting Majima all over town. He can show up basically anywhere, challenge you to a duel. When you fight him, you'll get more of your dragon fighting style back. In Chapter 1, you had all of your moves, but after 10 years in jail, you're rusty, so that's why you're back at level 1. That thing, I don't know if
that thing you like so much.
I like it a lot. It hasn't shown up in any of the games we've talked about in the JRPG canon, so I guess
you talked about it in our Shin Megami Tensei episode, I think, about how it gives you Cerberus near the beginning.
Yeah. So giving you Cerberus is a kind of this. This is the first one.
Straight up that.
Straight up that. It is. You start the game like you start Super Metroid with all of your stuff, and then you lose it and you have to gain it back. And it is an easy way to make you feel awesome and have I want to be awesome again going forward. And you do it with experience points for 3 of your 4 styles. You do it by fighting Majima for the 4th style. I really like it. Sam from Games is Lit was potentially going to be on this episode, and when we were talking about it, he asked to make sure that people who liked Majima Anywhere was on here, because too many people don't like it, and I don't know why, because I think it's a good Majima is a great character. It makes sense that the person who wants to be your rival would want you to be back at 100%, so he wants you to learn your fighting style back. It's good. It's a good marriage of gameplay and story. I like it.
Yeah, I definitely could see how Majima being a very minor character and only being precision deployed for maximum storytelling efficiency in the original was, I assume, better in some ways. But I don't know, if he had to be a more major character in the remake, since he's everyone's favorite character. I think they did a good job of doing that. I like Majima everywhere.
Yeah, I do too. Shout us out in the comments all the reasons you hate him, and we'll read them and not respond. So Kiryu meets up with Shinji, and he learns that Nishiki has changed in the last 10 years. He's not the easygoing friend that we used to have. He now has his own family. Kiryu tells Shinji that Kazuma wanted to see him, and Shinji tells Kiryu that there's going to be a funeral for the third chairman of the Tojo clan coming up, and Kiryu decides to crash the funeral so he can meet up with Kazuma.
He's like, there's the funeral for the third chairman of the Tojo clan is coming up, and Kiryu's like, the what? Because he hadn't heard that the head of the Tojo clan was killed.
Yeah. So this takes us into chapter 3, the funeral of fists. This chapter is a set piece chapter. It all takes place at the funeral for the chairman, and Kiryu has to sneak past some guards, do some adventure gaming to get to the back of the funeral. And
the adventure gaming is not good.
It's not good. It's not bad, but it's not good. And then after you get into the back of the funeral, you have some cutscenes, and then you have to fight your way out. And it fucking owns.
Yeah, the big chain of fights after the story events where you're escaping is incredible. I love it.
Yeah, it's a great first test of everything that chapter 1 and 2 tutorialized at you. There's no training wheels here. You just go around and you punch people and you get your way out of it.
There are a number of health restore items sitting on the ground as you go through, which is nice of them.
Yeah. If you get knocked down to easy because you suck, like I do, the boxes that you push over to find them, it contained like 11 on easy, which is great because I needed them. So
and good that this game has an easy mode, because I'm not good at this game either. I'm playing on normal, but if I were a little bit worse, I would definitely be very thankful for an easy mode, because it's hard. Yeah. After you fight your way out, you end with your first true boss fight against Shimano, who's one of the other chairmen. Like we said, you don't have to know how the mob works. He's just the head of a team that's not Kiryu's team. You just basically all you need to know, which you know very well by this point, is that he's Majima's boss, and basically the Shimano clan is the bad guys. They're the nasty ones. Yeah. So the boss fight is super hard. I'm real bad at this sort of game. Majima is the closest thing to a boss fight we've had so far, and he had like a 2 to 3 inch health bar. This guy has like a 7-8 inch health bar. It goes all the way across the screen, and it's filled up twice. You have to knock it down 2 times. It's hard. I suck at this game. I also had taken 6 months off between chapters 1 and 2 and chapter 3. And so all of the tutorializing that I had learned happened a long time ago. So I sucked really bad. My second time of sucking, I almost had it figured out. But then when I still died anyways, it asked if you want to drop down to easy, which is good game design. This game, like from the jump, he was like, I want it to make a gritty, realistic story. He's not FromSoft and trying to make you really good at this game because he believes in you. He wants to tell you a good Yakuza story. So dropping down to easy is given to you if you suck. And I said, thank you. I will take this and accept it. And I dropped down to easy and finally beat him the last time. Easy is a little too easy. I think if I was on easy, I wouldn't mind just like blasting through the game. But I'm up in this dude's grill, just punching him over and over again, and he's just not reacting.
Like, easy is definitely a AI tweak and not a damage tweak, which is appreciated because sometimes easy just being you kill them faster is not a very good, doesn't feel very good of a easy. But this one felt like I could be the Dragon of Dojima here because I was being able to punch him more than he was able to punch me, instead of I just did more damage and survived easier.
Yeah. I believe Tim Rogers, like you said, Tim Rogers said that these games capture the essence of a J drama. So I believe they, I think at some point I read some interview somewhere that they want the games to be really accessible because, you know, who in Japan doesn't love a good Yakuza story? So having an easy mode really helps with that. And then later they made the game Dragon Quest, which is the most
accessible brawler you could ever have.
Yes.
Beating this boss gets you into chapter 4, which is the true end of the opening of the game, which is where our first slice that we do here would be finish. So you watch a lot of cutscenes, and you get through those cutscenes by following personal stakes through it, like the ring in chapter 1. You fight a bunch of fights, and it culminates in a big climactic boss fight. But more important than this first loop is that at this point, the game opens up and introduces the sub-stories, which Yakuza is famous for. I didn't finish any of them, but there are 78 of them in Yakuza Kiwami, with 42 of them being in Chapter 4. The game very much opens up right at this point.
Yeah, at this point, you can go anywhere in Kamurocho, and if you make any effort to really explore, you're probably gonna get a few sub stories, and they're fun and neat, and they give you experience, which if you're not playing on easy, you're gonna need in order to beat the bosses.
Yeah, the
game's hard.
The how long to beat for this game has the main story at 18 hours. The long play on YouTube is 14 hours. And the completionist on how long to beat is 82.5 hours. There is
gosh.
There's a lot of meat to the side stories of this game. So while the vertical slice is definitely cutscenes, drama, NPC interrogation, set piece, boss fight, the main meat of a Yakuza game is the side stories. So this is just me heading off all of the haters who would say that I didn't cover enough because I didn't cover any of the side stories. I know they just happen to be in the second slice of the game, and we covered the first slice. So if there are any particular ones that Bernard wants to talk about, we'll get into that in our final thoughts after we listen to some more Yakuza music. バカみたい子供なのね夢を追って傷ついて嘘が下手なくせに笑えない笑顔を見せた I love you も Awesome. So yeah, are there any side stories you did that you want to highlight as anything?
Well, I did a few. I believe that the sub stories in the original Yakuza generally weren't as wild and elaborate as they became in later Yakuza games once they realized that the sub stories were such a huge draw and not just there to pad out the game. There were a few I played. There was one where there's this guy who is really trying to get certain prizes from a claw game in an arcade. Unfortunately, in this arcade, they have like Virtua Fighter cabinets. You cannot play the Virtua Fighter cabinets. But
apparently you can in later games in the series.
Yes, you can. In fact, I think one of the later games in the series, just from the main menu, you can select to play Virtua Fighter.
That's awesome.
But so you can play the claw game and get the prizes for him. You get a prize for him. He's like, "Thank you so much. This is for my daughter." And you're like, "Your daughter sounds demanding." And he's like, well, she's not my daughter per se, but she does call me daddy." Ew. And you're like, "Oh." But you do this a few times, then you end up having to fight someone. It's not terribly interesting, but it has some funny writing, and the claw game is sort of fun. And then there's another one, which is hilarious, where Kiryu's going around and he finds this card on the ground that is clearly some sort of trading card game card. Mm-hmm. And it has like a sexy woman in a swimsuit with like a beetle horn on her head. And he's like, "What the fuck is this?" And then this little kid in a lab coat runs up and he's like, "Oh no, I lost my card." And he asks Kiryu if he's seen this card that he's looking for this like battling beetle beauties game. And Kiryu's like, "I do have this card. This doesn't really look like a kid's game card." But the kid's like, "Yeah, that's it. Thank you." And Kiryu's like, "Man, kids are so mature these days." And you can then go to the arcade, and it turns out the cards, you use them with these arcade machines to play this game that boils down to rock, paper, scissors, where it's fairies who are insects fighting each other. And it's just sexy ladies fighting each other in a game that boils down to rock, paper, scissors. It's very silly. It's very lavishly produced. I appreciate it.
Yeah. So my final thoughts on the game are that I really, really want to like this game. I love the storytelling. I love the world, but I really fucking suck at 3-button combo action games, and I have since Lord of the Rings: The Two Towers for the PlayStation 2.
I love that game.
It's a good game, but I'm bad at it, and I'm bad at
so
it
good
to the
at
point
that game because I played it so much back as a child.
Mm-hmm. But it was to the point where like I wasn't really having fun doing it. I was finding like cheese strats to get at with the boss. Like all of the I looked up a guide because I couldn't beat it, and all of them were like, "Oh, use the rush combo so you can jump in, do a bunch of damage, and then jump out, and yada yada yada." None of them said to use the beast mode, but that's the one that I used because your dodge roll rolls you around to the back of them, so I could do a super cheesy, just like light strong attack, roll to the back of them, do it again, and got through the boss that way, which, as you could probably guess, isn't very fun to just do the same combo over and over again. But I'm bad at it so much, so I loved so many things about it, but actually playing the game I didn't like that much. So I might skip the games. I might go play Like a Dragon 7 because it's an RPG, and probably will have all the stuff I liked about it more. I might watch the game movies for the 6 games. I might kick it down to easy and see if I can just turn my brain off and mash through everything. I don't know. It's a very delicious game, and I really love it, and I can see how everybody loves it, but I am just so bad at it that I wasn't having fun doing the fighting parts.
The problem is I don't think watching a game movie like really is good for getting the full experience, because we were talking about how walking around Kamurocho feels so great and everything.
Yeah.
But I believe free on Sega's website, I believe there are manga adaptations of the stories of the games, which might be a fun way to check out the stories. And I did just Google it. Apparently buffs and debuffs are not a big deal in Yakuza Like a Dragon, so maybe you'll be good at that game.
Maybe I will.
I'm trying to find those comics. I'm pretty sure they exist.
Yeah, I know that this first game had a movie adaptation, so I could watch the movie, and it's probably pretty good. I know they're working to get a new drama series based on it now that Yakuza is in its heyday. So I will probably be able to enjoy this game from the sidelines, but I'm like mad that I don't like playing this game, because I love exploring in the game and all of that stuff. And so maybe I'll try it again, because I think PlayStation Plus has given me all of them at this point. I know I think they're all on PlayStation Plus and Xbox Game Pass. Yeah,
they're pretty easy to get.
I mean, specifically, I think the PlayStation Plus free games, I know it's given out Kiwami. I think it's given out Kiwami 2. I know it's given out 3, 4, and 5. I don't know if it's given out 6, but I know it's given out 7. So basically, if you've been a PlayStation Plus member since the PS3, like I have, you probably have all of them. I know that I have all of them. So maybe I'll come around and hang out with it again down the line. Maybe I'll kick it down to easy, see how much I like it. But otherwise, I can tell it's a masterpiece, and it just might not be for me.
Mm-hmm. So from what I play, I never finished Yakuza 1 original back in the day for some reason, even though I loved it. Sometimes I love a game and I don't finish it. Mm-hmm. But I do want to finish Yakuza Kiwami. I will say, in just about every way, Yakuza 0 is a much stronger game. Mm-hmm. And maybe that's partly because I have seen the full experience of it, because I beat it. But it's just, I feel like the series gets better. And starts good, but gets better.
Yeah.
And, oh crap, what was I going to say? Sam, what was I going to say?
I don't know.
What good are you? You keep going, maybe I'll remember.
I was about to wrap up, so if I keep going, you won't be able to remember.
Shit! I don't know, you just go ahead.
If you remember it when you're editing this episode, cut yourself back in.
I will.
But yeah, that's where we'll call it for the week. If you like what you heard today and you have suggestions for other games for us to play on the JRPG Canon, you can commission it in an episode, just like Eliza Tantivy commissioned this one, over at www.rpgbook.club, where we'll play anything you want us to in this format. At least try and make it something where you can make a case for it to be in the JRPG Canon. We joked last week about Super Mario 64, but a little more RPG-ish than Super Mario 64, like Super Paper Mario. That's the one. But commissioning an episode or donating in general will get you access to our Book Club no Kaseki episodes a month before everyone else, and let you vote on polls to determine what we play on our main podcast. If you donate $5 or more a month, you will get your name shouted out at the end of every episode, just like this. Shout outs to Floris and Kaldron and Freddie Rodriguez and Bernie L. Taylor and AA Ron 524 and Anthony Lerma and Vimk and Jfro Prime and Doho. And then if you donate $20 or more a month, we will read your name and a one-sentence plug of your choosing. Eliza has changed their shout-outs. They want to shout out globalgamejam.org, which is an upcoming event to try game development for 3 days alone or with a group with many different sites around at many different sites around the world or online. It's a huge game jam coming up, and that is January 30th through February 3rd, looks like. Our other luminary is Carr, who is a dentist, so his shout out is not for a URL, but is for your own mouth. He says to brush your teeth twice a day, most importantly, the time right before you go to bed. For the JRPG Canon, I have been Sam Allman.
And I remembered what I was going to say. I wanted to say that the faces and facial animation in this game are great. I feel like in a lot of games, everyone sort of looks the same, but everyone looks so cool and unique and great in this game. And the facial animations are great.
They are.
And I love good facial animations. I remember freaking out about that when I played Lost Odyssey.
Mm-hmm.
The end. I'm David Bernard Houck. Goodbye.
Go play some games.